Okay, as we take a look at problem number 49, we give us our two equations. It says that we have f of x equals 2 secant squared of x, and that's from negative pi over 4 to pi over 4. And the directions on 49 says find the value of c guaranteed by the mean value theorem for integrals with function over the given integral. So we just need to go ahead and remember our mean value theorem. So our mean value theorem just basically says that calculus equals algebra. So as I look at my problem right here, here's my calculus part of it. It says got the integral from a to b of f of x dx. That's going to equal my algebra. Here's my lengths, here's my widths. And so lengths times width is equal to area, which is the definition of what an integral is. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and substitute in to our equation. So first off, I've got from a to b. So here is my a to b right here. I got negative pi over 4, pi over 4. So I substitute those in to my integral. I got negative pi over 4, pi over 4. And here's my equation, f of x. Well, f of x is equal to 2 secant squared of x. And then I've got the dx. And then this is all going to equal, and here's my equation. So my equation, 2 secant squared of x, substitutes right into here. There's my lengths. And then here is my widths, so pi over 4 minus a minus pi over 4. So now it's just a matter of going ahead and solving these problems. So when I solve this, I have to remember, and I'm going to make sure that I have those memorized, but I just put a little note over here to the side. Remember that the integral of the secant squared of x dx is equal to the tangent of x. So I'm going to integrate this right here. This is a constant. 2 is my constant, so I just hold it constant. And the integral of the secant squared of x is tangent of x. And that's going to be evaluated from pi over 4 to negative pi over 4. And then I take this right here. I got pi over 4 minus pi over 4. So that actually makes that a plus sign. So that makes that pi plus pi is 2 pi. Keep the same denominator as 4. Now that I've done that, I can go ahead and evaluate my equation right here. So I can find f of pi over 4. So that, substituting that in, that's 2 tangent of pi over 4. I've still got my minus sign, and then that's going to be 2. I've got my 2 there, but 2 tangent of negative pi over 4. So substituting that in, the answer to tangent of pi over 4 is 1. And tangent of negative pi over 4 is going to be negative 1. So that leaves me with a 2 minus 2 times negative 1. So that's going to make that positive. So that becomes 4. So now I've got 4 equals 2 secant squared of x of pi over 2. So the first thing that I do here is I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. So just solving it algebraically. So when I solve this algebraically, I divide both sides by 2. And that leaves me with 2 all equals secant squared of x times pi over 2. So I'm going to take this equation right here, and I'm going to divide both sides by, still solving my algebra. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by pi over 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2 over pi, and that's going to give me 4 over pi, and that equals the secant squared of x. So then I need to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So taking the square root of both sides, well, the square root of 4 is 2, and then I still have my square root of pi at the bottom. And that all equals the secant of x. Well, secant of x isn't on my calculator, so I'm going to have to change to one of the functions that is on the calculator. So I got to reciprocate, take the reciprocal of both sides. So the reciprocal of the secant of x is a cosine. And then I just flip this one, and that becomes the square root of pi over 2. Now that I've done that, remember to get x by itself, I'm going to do cosine inverse of both sides. So I got the cosine inverse of the square root of pi all over 2 all equals x. At that point right there, just take your calculator, type that into your calculator. So in your calculator, we're going to go ahead and make sure you're in the correct mode. So come down here to radian mode. Change that over, hit second, cosine inverse. And then just type in your calculator the square root of pi. And that looks like that came out a little bit weird, so let's try that again. So second, cosine inverse, and then hit second, square root of, and second pi. Arrow on over, take that out to be the square root, and then divide by 2, in parentheses, hit enter, and there's your answer of 0.5 or 0.4817. Okay, on problem number 66 on section 4.4. Shows us this graph. This is the graph of f as shown in the figure. The shaded region A has an area of 1.5, and 0 to 6 of f of x dx equals 3.5. Use this information to fill in the blanks. So we got to use this information right here. So first off, we have to keep an idea of this has an area of 1.5. So that means that this area A, so this little region right here, this is 1.5. And then it says that this right here from 0 to 6 is equal to 3.5. So looking at A right here, it wants me to find the integral of 0 to 2 of f of x dx, and it wants to know what that's equal to. Well, looking at the shape right here, that's going to be this right here, but you're going to notice that is below the x-axis. So since it's below the x-axis, if I was actually do the integral, that would come out to be negative 1.5. So since it's below the x-axis, that makes it a negative 1.5. Okay, now I want to go ahead and find the integral from 2 to 6 f of x dx. Well, you're going to notice that if I want to find that integral from 2 to 6 f of x dx, so it says right here from 0 to 6, that's equal to 3.5. So if I want to find the integral of just this piece right here, I got to take 3.5 and I have to subtract from 0 to 2. So 0 to 2 is negative 1.5. So subtracting those, so I got 3.5 minus a minus 1.5, and that becomes 3.5 plus 1.5, and 3.5 plus 1.5 comes out to be 5. So that integral from 2 to 6 would come out to be 5. Okay, now it wants me to do the absolute value of this right here. So the absolute value of 0 to 6, so that means I'm going to take this 1.5 and flips it up there, so it becomes a positive 1.5. So this is 1.5 plus, and here is the other area from here to here. So the area from there to there came out to be 5, so I add those together. So 1.5 plus 5 would be the total distance, or the absolute value, and so that comes out to be a total of 3.5 plus, or say 1.5 plus 5, which gives me a total of 6.5. Okay, now on D it says it wants me to go ahead and take the integral from 0 to 2 of negative 2 f of x dx. So remember, negative 2 is a constant, so I can just hold it constant. And then the answer to this is 0 to 2 of f of x. I've got right up here is negative 1.5. So I just have to take this negative 2 times negative 1.5. And when I take negative 2 times negative 1.5, that comes out to be a positive 3. So that would be that answer. Okay, now on E, right here, I'm going to erase all this. Well, we're going to still use it, so maybe I won't erase it. So notice, I'm going to break this apart. So I'm going to break it apart from 0 to 6 of 2 plus 0 to 6 of f of x dx. So I broke apart plus that plus sign because I already have, so notice my 0 to 6, I already have that answer right up here. That says that answer is 3.5. So now I got to go ahead and find this answer. So finding this answer of 2 dx, so that when I integrate it becomes 2x. I'm going to evaluate that from f of 6 minus f of 0. So substituting the 6 there, I've got 2 times 6 is 12 minus 0. So that's going to give me 12. So I got to take 12 plus 3.5. And so 12 plus 3.5 gives me that answer of 15.5. Okay, now on this last one it says find the average value of f over the interval from 0 to 6. So remember, average value is where you actually divide by the widths. So notice right here. So it already gave me the answer. So let me erase all this out of the way and we'll go ahead and finish this off. So on this last one. So it says on this last one, it wants me to find this average value. So here's my value, which is 3.5. And now I'm going to divide this by, well, here's my 6 minus 0. So I'm going to take 3.5, going to divide that by 6. So when I take 3.5 divided by 6, that comes out to be 0.5833. Let me check my calc here real quick here. So I got 3.5 and divide that by 6. So 0.5833. So there's my answer, 0.5833.